All right, Adam and I are back. It's the second week of CU football camp, and practice number 4. And Adam, the Buffs, back out on the lower fields, and Coach Tucker, kind of recap a little bit more of that open practice the other day, and things are starting to get a little more real for these guys.
Well, you can tell he genuinely likes what he sees from this football team, which is impressive. And even asked him which guys have made a big jump from spring ball, and it wasn't one or two guys. He started listing guys off, and a lot of the names we've heard, but Deion Smith, Fontenot have been flashing. He talked about Arias making play after play after play. He mentioned Dimitri Stanley. Defensively, a name we've heard a lot about, and a guy I talked to today is Aaron Maddox at safety, a guy that I think you're going to see play a lot of football this year.
He also mentioned that he thinks the most underrated guy in the entire football team is Carson Wells, and who had a pretty good year last year. I think 4.5 sacks, and I agree. I think he's sort of underrated. I think he can be primed for a big year. What are your thoughts on Carson and just kind of Mel's comments about him?
If you only watched the last 4-ish games of last season, you can make a case he's one of their top 5 players on this entire team. That's
right.
How much he flashed late in the year. I think it took a little time for him just to get comfortable and pin his ears back and play like he did. It looked like he had been freed at the end of last year, and doesn't have the length maybe you'd want from an outside backer, but gosh, he's such a great athlete, and he's slowly put on some good weight since he's been here. He's without question their best outside linebacker.
He's obviously bigger, but I remember a couple years ago being at that high school camp, that under the lights camp, and he won the fastest man competition. He's a little bit bigger then, but still has some speed, which you want at that outside linebacker spot. You talked to Aaron Maddox today. Tell me about that conversation, and Aaron obviously flashing a little bit, and like Coach Tucker said, didn't get to see him in the spring, but he's flashing so far.
He is as personable as it gets. Yeah. He's just a great personality, and I didn't even bring this up. I asked what he learned playing some, in the Pac-12 last year, a different role. He was more of a nickel back last year. Now he's going to be a traditional safety, but he brought up the taunting penalty that he had in a game where he made a great play. They were going to get off the field, and then they gave the other team a first down. And so that was what he took away from last year, is to play smarter. Still, it's a work in progress in terms of always being in the right spot, but from an athletic standpoint, he's top level, and he's, even despite having 3 surgeries in the last year, he's still been able to put on some good weight. He's still not huge, but he's over 200 now, and I think that should help his body hold up throughout the rigors of a season.
I remember him coming to the podium after that game where he had the taunting penalty. I think it was at Washington, if I'm remembering right.
It was a home game here.
Was it a home game?
Yeah.
I remember him coming to the podium, and I asked him about that, and he just said that will not happen again. Like, he recognized right away that was the wrong thing. So I agree with you. He's personable. I think he's self-aware of what's going on as well. I talked to Darian Jones, and he mentioned, we've talked a lot about Darian, like last year, just how much he was swimming. Just his head was spinning so much, and he admitted as much. He said last year, my head was just everywhere, but this year he's so much more comfortable and starting to get things down. It sounds like that group in general, is very much a work in progress. I talked to Coach Alpapunu. He said because we still just need to get better at catching the ball. And I asked him, who's the most natural pass catcher, and it was thought for a second. I said, is there one? And he goes, not really, but he goes, we're trying to get there. And there's a couple guys like Bo Bisharat and Lucas Stillwell are guys that might be the most natural pass catchers, but he says sometimes they lose that concentration and they're dropping passes they should catch. So that group very much a work in progress. But Darian Jones, obviously, I think he's in a better place than he was last year. He's a guy that can help them this year.
He definitely looks the part. At his junior college, I was told, he was basically told, run straight, get open. And if you watch the film, that's kind of what he's doing.
Yeah.
So coming in here last year, big learning curve. I remember when we had a chance to watch them last spring, the coaches are having to put him in the spot he's supposed to be on almost every play. But also that summer I golfed with Daniel DePrado, who's helping out with the tight ends now at Arkansas. But he told me, when it clicks for Darian Jones, he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
He didn't know when that was going to happen. If it happens at some point this season, he's a guy that can really help this football team. Again, we talked about it on Saturday. He looks the part. He looks like he could play in the NFL.
Yeah, in fact, I was walking with Coach Papunu at the end, and he mentioned that to me. And he played in the NFL, I think, 9 years. He said he can play at the next level. He's just got to get some things going. So that's got to be exciting. If he can get it going at some point this year, that's going to be a huge weapon for the Buffs. Who else did you talk to? I'm drawing a blank here.
Jaylen Harris,
that's right.
tight end as well, and just talked a lot about the leadership role that guys have allowed him to have, given the experience he had playing in the SEC. But he admitted it's still a work in progress. he does think that this offense is going to suit him pretty well. We already know he's going to be a top-level run blocker as a tight end. Question is, how natural is it for him as a pass catcher? I guess it remains to be seen, but he's a guy that has NFL aspirations as well, so he's working his tail off.
Yeah, it sounds like right now Harris and Brady Russell are running mostly with the ones, Darian Jones with the twos, but that group very much a work in progress, and who knows, we could see some of those guys step up. I talked to Tim Lynott a little bit, stuck my microphone in there and asked him a couple questions. He has not really been at center much the first 4 practices, but he said he's totally fine with that because he understands that Colby Purcell, after missing all the spring or most of the spring, needs those reps. So he said it's been very good for Colby to get in there and get center snaps. But according to Tim, he thinks it's very much a wide open competition. So that's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out throughout camp.
With Colby Purcell, if Tim Lynott is comfortable staying at right guard, I think you just roll with Purcell there. The more I've thought about this, he started there last year, and he's probably going to be their center the next 2 years after this. Right. So kind of keep that continuity with him at center. It makes quite a bit of sense. And if we can get the Tim Lynott back of 2016 in right guard, he was pulling and looked great, and now he's healthy again. So hopefully we see that Tim Lynott again. The
other thing too is he's shifted a lot between center and guard in 2017 and was not comfortable doing that. And Tim told me he's much more comfortable doing that now. So I'm sort of leaning towards agreeing with you on that. That just stick Tim at right guard, and if something happens to Colby, I think it's going to be more of a natural shift over for Tim. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm sort of agreeing with you there.
Yeah. And full pads come on tomorrow, but Mel Tucker said, hey, we've had shoulder pads on the last 2 practices. Not a whole lot's going to change. And we saw that. I was actually kind of surprised on Saturday when they're in shells. It looked like almost a full contact type practice. So they're definitely getting after it.
Yeah, and one last thing, he was asked if putting the pads on really provides some separation. He really said, we don't want separation. He goes, we're doing 2 different fields, doing reps. He goes, we want everybody to come along with us. So he's trying to get everybody up to speed. So he doesn't want I'm sure he wants separation, but he wants everybody to kind of go at that same pace.
Yeah. Before we sign off, how about Kabion Ento making some news out there in Green Bay as a cornerback now? I mean, I love the kid. I didn't expect him to make an NFL roster. I still don't know if that's going to happen, but it's pretty cool to see that he's had some success up there.
Yeah, I wish him a lot of luck. I mean, Kabion is just a great young man, and I know he wants that for his family. So whether it's cornerback, receiver, whatever, just get in the league, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, awesome. Adam and I will be back tomorrow to talk about practice number 5.